Have you ever met someone and felt like the universe had been quietly orchestrating that moment for years? You're standing in line at a coffee shop and a stranger says something that instantly sparks a deep conversation. Or maybe it's someone you keep bumping into, randomly, in different cities, through mutual friends, or even online. And every time you cross paths, there's this magnetic pull. Something about them feels too perfect to be a coincidence. Most people brush it off. It's just timing, they say, or probably nothing. But you felt it, that unshakable feeling that this person means something, that your connection is a thread in a much larger web being woven quietly in the background of your life. Or perhaps, after years apart, a certain person reappears in your life at the perfect moment. Coincidence or something deeper? According to Carl Jung, the universe speaks in signs and symbols, and when two souls are meant to meet, it doesn't whisper, it screams. But only if you're paying attention. Carl Jung believed that such moments weren't random. In fact, he once said, "We often meet our destiny on the road we take to avoid it." Let that sink in for a second. Sometimes, the very people we try to ignore, or the paths we thought we'd never walk, lead us to something deeply meaningful. Love, purpose, awakening. That's why the most significant people in your life often show up when you're not looking for them. When you're healing, when you're broken, when you're busy becoming who you were meant to be. That's not just chance. That's the unconscious mind working in harmony with the universe. Jung called it the individuation process, the journey toward wholeness. And sometimes someone enters your life not to complete you, but to mirror back the parts you've forgotten exist within you. So if you've ever asked, is this person meant to be in my life? Or, why can't I let go of this connection even after time and distance? You're not crazy. You're waking up to a deeper truth. And this video is your roadmap. We're about to dive into the hidden signs the universe uses to reveal a soul connection, and what Carl Jung really meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Stick around, because what you're about to learn might just change the way you see every relationship you've ever had, and every one you'll have from this point forward. Sign number 1, synchronicity, when coincidence feels too perfect to ignore. Carl Jung introduced a concept that changed how we see fate. Synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem random but aren't. If the same person keeps showing up in your dreams, if you keep hearing their name in conversations, songs or books, that's not your imagination. That's your subconscious, and possibly the universe, trying to tell you something. Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. Carl Jung. When events align in strange, perfect timing, pay attention. That recurring name or chance meeting isn't random. It's a symbol. Something is being mirrored back to you. Imagine this. You're walking through a bookstore, not looking for anything in particular, and you randomly pick up a book. You flip to a page and read a passage that mentions the exact dilemma you've been struggling with for weeks. Hours later, you get a text from someone you haven't spoken to in years, the very person who's tied to that dilemma. Is it just coincidence? According to Carl Jung, no, it's synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that defies logic, but speaks straight to the soul. We often discover, with astonishment, that something we have just dreamed about is actualized by a coinciding event. Carl Jung. Jung didn't see the universe as random. He believed the unconscious mind and external world are interwoven, communicating through patterns, symbols, and timing. And when someone is meant to be in your life, truly meant, the signs don't whisper, they echo. What does this look like in real life? Let's say you've been thinking about someone from your past, a friend you lost touch with, or maybe a potential love interest where the timing never felt quite right. You haven't spoken in months, even years. Suddenly, You hear a song on the radio that instantly reminds you of them. You dream about them 3 nights in a row. You bump into someone with the same name, or even bump into them entirely by chance. Most people dismiss this as just weird, but if it keeps happening, it's not just weird, it's guidance. Synchronicities are like cosmic breadcrumbs. They point you somewhere or to someone your logical mind can't quite explain, but your inner world deeply understands. Why do these patterns matter so much? Because Jung believed that what we don't understand consciously is still active unconsciously. If a person keeps showing up in your external life, whether through dreams, coincidences, or reminders, it's likely because they represent something your psyche is trying to integrate: unresolved emotion, personal growth, or an opportunity for deeper connection. The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung: synchronicity doesn't guarantee this person is the one, but it invites you to explore the meaning. It's the universe saying, look here, there's something to pay attention to. There's something you haven't faced. The problem is, most of us don't trust patterns unless they make logical sense. But Jung taught that the soul doesn't speak through logic. It speaks through symbol, emotion, and timing. And if you're too distracted, too skeptical, or too stuck in your mind, you'll ignore what your intuition already knows. So the next time someone repeatedly crosses your path, whether in life, memory, or dreams, don't dismiss it. Stop, reflect, ask yourself, what part of me is being triggered? What does this person symbolize in my life right now? Is this a call to action or closure? The signs are always there. It's not a matter of whether they exist. It's whether you're awake enough to see them. Sign number 2. The connection feels familiar, yet new. One of the most mystical signs is that feeling of instant recognition. You meet someone, and it's as if you've known them forever, yet you've only just met. You can't explain it. You barely know anything about them on the surface, yet being around them feels safe, almost nostalgic, like home. Jung believed this can occur when 2 people's unconscious minds recognize each other before the conscious mind does. It's not logical, it's psychic familiarity. This often happens when your shadow, the hidden parts of you, resonates with theirs. You feel drawn in, you can't explain why. That's because your souls have met before, if not in this life, then in your inner world. This connection can feel intense, even overwhelming, but it carries a sense of meaning. It's not just chemistry, it's something much deeper, a call toward transformation. Carl Jung believed that when this kind of connection happens, it's not just chemistry or coincidence, it's something far deeper, the unconscious recognizing something it's long been searching for. This sense of instant familiarity can be confusing. How can someone feel so deeply known to you when you've only just met? The answer lies within Jung's understanding of the psyche, especially the anima and animus, the inner image of the opposite gender that lives within us all. These inner templates shape how we relate to others, often making certain people feel magnetically familiar because they mirror parts of our unconscious selves. You've just started a new job or joined a new class, and one person immediately stands out. There's no specific reason, maybe they haven't even said much, but something in you feels like you've known them in another lifetime. You're drawn to them, not just physically or emotionally, but energetically. Their voice feels soothing, their presence feels grounding. They finish your sentences or understand your moods with very little explanation. You wonder, how is this even possible? This kind of connection is rare and often uncomfortable. Why? Because it wakes something up in you. It stirs your inner world. These people act like psychological mirrors, reflecting back parts of you that are either hidden, wounded, or waiting to evolve. Jung explained this phenomenon using the concept of projection. When you meet someone who seems familiar, it's often because you're projecting unconscious material, your needs, fears, desires onto them. But unlike shallow projections that fade quickly, soul-level connections feel both mystical and grounded. They force you to confront parts of yourself you may have ignored. Maybe they awaken a sense of courage you didn't know you had. Maybe they challenge your independence. Or maybe they expose your fears around intimacy and vulnerability. These people don't just feel familiar, they activate you. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. And often, they're the ones who push you toward that terrifying but transformative path, accepting all of who you are. Not everyone you click with is a soul connection. But when that feeling of "I've known you before" is accompanied by a deep inner shift, when your thinking changes, when your emotions deepen, when your self-awareness grows, that's when you know the universe has placed this person in your path for a reason. It's not always romantic, it's not always easy, but it's always meaningful. These relationships don't come to complete you, they come to reveal you. So if you've ever felt this magnetic familiarity with someone, don't rush to define it. Sit with it, observe what it brings up in you. Because often the people who feel the most familiar aren't part of your past, they're key to your becoming. Sign number 3. Their presence triggers inner growth. Here's the strange paradox. If the universe wants you with someone, it may not always feel comfortable. In fact, it might feel challenging. It's not always the butterflies that tell you someone is meant for you. Sometimes it's the way they challenge your ego, push your limits, and make you feel just uncomfortable enough to grow. Why? Because real soul connections wake you up. They expose your wounds. They trigger your insecurities, but they also help you heal. Carl Jung believed that relationships, especially the most intense ones, are not always about harmony. Sometimes they're about transformation. The universe sends certain people into our lives not to soothe us, but to stretch us. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. Think about that for a second. When someone triggers you, frustrates you, or forces you to confront things you'd rather ignore, your instinct might be to pull away. But what if their presence is actually a mirror, showing you what still needs healing? Maybe you've met someone who challenges you emotionally. They're honest, almost too honest. They call out your excuses. They don't let you hide behind charm, humor, or deflection. At first, it feels like friction. But over time you realize they see a version of you you've been too afraid to meet. Or maybe they trigger your deepest insecurities, not because they intend to hurt you, but because they awaken something unresolved in you. Your fear of abandonment, your need for control, your discomfort with being seen and loved without conditions. This isn't easy, but it's necessary. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward becoming your most authentic, integrated self. And often, the people who trigger us are actually activating our shadow, the parts of us we've buried or rejected. When someone pushes your buttons, it's tempting to label them as toxic or difficult. But Jung would ask, why is this reaction so strong? What are they waking up in you that's been dormant? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. If you're constantly being triggered in a relationship, it doesn't always mean the connection is wrong. Sometimes it means it's important, because transformation always requires tension, and the right person won't just comfort your wounds, they'll help you heal them by making you see them. These aren't surface-level connections. They don't exist to flatter your ego. They exist to burn away the illusions you've built around who you are and what love is. You'll know this sign is real when their presence makes you reevaluate your beliefs, forces you to confront your emotional patterns, inspires you to level up emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. They don't complete you, but they do compel you to complete yourself. These people feel like fire, not because they destroy you, but because they forge you into something stronger and more authentic. Sign number 4. They show up during major life shifts. Have you noticed how certain people enter your life right when everything is falling apart or coming together? It's rarely during the calm seasons. It's in the chaos, the heartbreak, the transition, the identity crisis, when the universe seems to send someone unexpected. According to Carl Jung, this is not random. In fact, it's exactly how meaningful encounters tend to happen. Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. Carl Jung. Jung believed in synchronicity, the idea that some events are connected not by cause and effect, but by meaning. In other words, when you're going through something big, losing someone, starting over, waking up to who you really are, the universe doesn't just shift your world. It shifts the people who enter it. You're healing from a painful breakup. You've just lost your job. You're standing at a major crossroads, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, they appear. Not to save you, not to fix you, but to walk beside you in the exact moment your identity is being reshaped. Maybe they offer insight you didn't know you needed. Maybe their energy reminds you of what's possible beyond your pain. Or maybe, simply by being themselves, they help you reconnect with yourself. They show up like a whisper in the storm, a sign that says, you're not alone. And this change, it matters. Jung viewed the psyche as a dynamic, evolving system. When we go through major life shifts, we're not just changing externally, we're undergoing an inner metamorphosis. These changes rearrange our unconscious landscape, and as we shift, we begin to attract different kinds of people. People who mirror our new energy or help us break through the last walls we've built around ourselves. So when someone arrives during a time of upheaval, don't dismiss it as coincidence. Ask yourself, what am I shedding right now? What truth am I stepping into? And what might this person represent on my journey? Because often, the people who show up during your storms are not just there for comfort. They're part of your evolution. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Carl Jung. And sometimes love, or the beginning of a soul connection, is born in the mess, not in the polished version of your life you think you need to present. Sign number 5. You feel emotionally exposed, but safe. One of the most powerful signs that the universe may have sent someone into your life is this strange emotional paradox. You feel vulnerable, completely seen, even emotionally exposed. Yet at the same time you feel safe. It's not that you tell them everything right away, but something in you wants to. Not because you're desperate for connection, but because their presence invites honesty. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And here's the thing. We don't become who we truly are in isolation. We become that version in the presence of someone who allows us to show up without the mask. You've probably experienced this on some level. You're talking to someone you haven't known for long, and yet your guard begins to drop. You notice it when you don't feel the need to impress them. You're not afraid of awkward silence. You can talk about your fears, your insecurities, even your weird quirks without flinching. It doesn't mean you feel perfect or fearless, but somehow you feel like you won't be judged for being real. This is emotional safety, and it's rare. In Jungian psychology, this kind of safety often shows up when a person has already done shadow work. They've come to terms with their own flaws, so they're not threatened by yours. They don't shame you for your pain because they've faced their own. And that's why it feels so disarming. You're used to wearing armor, and now you're invited to take it off. Emotional safety isn't just about comfort, it's about transformation. Because only when you feel safe do you begin to speak your truth without fear, share the parts of yourself you've kept hidden, explore love without performing or pretending. And this is where true intimacy begins. Not just romantic intimacy, but psychological closeness. It's the kind of connection that doesn't drain you. It fills you. You might still struggle with doubts or old wounds, but in their presence, healing doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like a quiet unfolding, a soft return to your true self. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung. And when someone makes you feel safe to look inward, to drop your armor and show your real face, that's when the universe is truly speaking. Sign number 6. They reflect your shadow and still choose you. There's a moment in certain relationships that's both terrifying and beautiful. It's when someone sees the ugliest, most hidden parts of you and they don't run. They see the envy, the insecurity, the wounded child, the protective walls you've spent years building, and instead of pulling away, they stay. Not because they're blind to your flaws, but because they understand them. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious part of us we repress, deny, or try to hide because we fear it will make us unlovable. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. But here's the twist. Often, the person who's meant for you, the one the universe sends, is the person who sees that shadow and embraces you not despite it, but with it. In most relationships, we lead with our best self. We show the polite, composed, capable version, the curated highlight reel. But then, life happens. You get tired, triggered, exposed. Your shadow starts to slip through the cracks. You overreact to something small. You shut down emotionally. You lash out or retreat, or reveal an insecurity you thought you'd buried years ago. In many relationships, that's when things start to unravel. But when the connection is deep, real, and soul-aligned, something different happens. They don't retreat. They don't shame you. They hold space for the mess. They might challenge you, yes, but they don't abandon you. That kind of acceptance is sacred and rare, because they're not just seeing your ego. They're touching the real you, the parts you've long disowned. Here's the paradox Jung talked about. The deeper the love, the more likely it is to activate your shadow. That's because real intimacy is the fastest way to stir the unconscious. When someone gets close, they don't just meet your personality. They collide with your trauma, your past, your shame. But it's in that very mirror, when they reflect your deepest fears, that the potential for true transformation begins. They become both your mirror and your medicine. And when the reaction is real, both people evolve. If someone stays after seeing your shadow, it's not because they're naive or overly forgiving. It's because they've met their own shadow too. They understand that real love isn't about perfection. It's about integration, about walking beside someone as they become whole. And when they reflect your darkness, yet still choose your light, you're no longer hiding. You're finally seen, fully. And that kind of love, that's the kind the universe doesn't send often. So now you're probably wondering, okay, I've felt some of these signs, but how do I know this connection is truly from the universe and not just wishful thinking or emotional attachment? Great question, because there's a fine line between destiny and delusion. One of the most seductive illusions we fall into is mistaking obsession for alignment, believing someone is meant for us, when, in reality, they're just triggering our deepest wounds. Carl Jung warned us that what we are unconscious of has the power to possess us. That includes our unresolved desires, fears, and unmet childhood needs. And when these are stirred by another person, it can feel almost cosmic. But not everything that feels intense is meant. Sometimes it's just our shadow being lit up like wildfire. Psychological trap number 1, trauma bonding, masquerading as soul connection. A person can trigger your abandonment wounds, your longing to be seen, or your need to prove your worth, and you interpret that as butterflies or a strong pull. But what you're actually experiencing is a trauma echo, your inner child chasing resolution through the wrong person. You might say, I can't stop thinking about them. They feel like home. There's just something about them. But obsession isn't about love. It's about lack. It's your psyche trying to complete a pattern it never healed. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. You don't love them. You need something from them. That's not fate. That's your shadow crying for closure. Psychological trap number 2, projection and fantasy. Jung taught that we often project the anima or animus, the idealized inner man or woman, onto others. This is especially common during infatuation. You're not falling for who they are. You're falling for the idea of them. You fill in the blanks with your desires. You overlook red flags. You romanticize what little they give. You assign meaning to coincidences and obsess over signs that reinforce your hope. Fantasy becomes a drug. The high of what could be is more addictive than any reality, and in that fantasy, you're not connected to them. You're in a relationship with your own mind. Let's ground this now. Here are 5 clear markers to tell whether what you're feeling is aligned or just obsessive. 1. Peace versus anxiety. Alignment feels calm. You feel at ease in their presence. Obsession feels like anxiety. You're constantly overthinking, overanalyzing, wondering what they're thinking or doing. If you're constantly in your head, it's probably not alignment. Real connection lives in the heart and the body, not in racing thoughts. 2. Clarity versus confusion. Alignment brings clarity. You know where you stand, even if it's not perfect. Obsession thrives on confusion. You're always guessing, doubting, hoping, clinging to mixed signals. If the connection keeps you in limbo, it might be your fantasy, not your future. 3. Growth versus addiction. Alignment makes you grow. It challenges you to evolve, but in a healthy, balanced way. Obsession makes you shrink. You lose yourself trying to win them. You forget your needs, boundaries, even your self-worth. Love should lift you, not consume you. 4. Mutual effort versus one-sided investment. Alignment feels reciprocal. You're both choosing each other, openly. Obsession is unbalanced. One person is giving, chasing, explaining, proving, while the other is distant, vague, or non-committal. Real connections are co-created, not chased. 5. Reality versus potential. Alignment is grounded in who they actually are. Obsession is built on who you hope they'll become. If you're in love with the potential of a relationship, it's not alignment, it's your projection. We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. Carl Jung. And sometimes that fated person is simply a mirror, reflecting what you need to heal, not who you need to keep. So here's the truth. Sometimes what we think is destiny is really just a reflection of our deepest, unhealed wounds, and that intense craving for someone. It might not be love. It might be a cry from the parts of you that still feel unseen, unloved, or abandoned. Carl Jung's work reminds us, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives. You'll keep chasing the same kind of person, feeling the same pain over and over, thinking this time it's different. But when you finally pause, look inward, and do the shadow work, everything shifts. You stop chasing people who reflect your pain. You start attracting people who resonate with your peace. You stop craving what's unhealthy. You start choosing what's true. So here's my challenge to you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what shadow are you ready to face today? Be bold, be honest. Your words might inspire someone else to start their healing too. And if you found value in this message, make sure to subscribe for more content exploring Carl Jung, self-worth, relationships, and emotional growth. Because this is the journey of becoming whole. The universe doesn't send love to fix you. It sends love after you've begun fixing yourself. Let's keep growing together.